Okay, this is CAD Methods. This is Lab 5.1, Part 1, Exercise 10-1, and it's on page 385 in your book. And you're to open up sample file EX10-1. If you can't find it or you didn't get it for some reason, send me a Ask the Instructor message and I'll send it back to you. But this is it. It's a couple of simple shapes, and what they want us to do is hatch this put this hatch pattern in here. And to do that, you use that command right there. So you're just going to type hatch in AutoCAD. And you can see we didn't get a whole lot. Now, right away, you can click it and apply that hatch to the field there. And that's all you need to do to complete exercise 10-1. Now, if we move over to the next lab, 10-2 on page 391, they want us to add another hatch pattern here. So this is a general purpose hatch that we use for everything when we don't want to specify what it is, because there's a hatch pattern for everything: steel, aluminum, wood, dirt. There's a hatch pattern for nearly every application. This one is the general purpose hatch. It's called ANSI 1 or ANSI 31. So it's telling us here, use the hatch command to create a hatch using ANSI 32 pattern. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to type hatch in AutoCAD, and I'm going to get these choices down here. Now this one's a little different. Normally we'd want to say S to get into something, but S is for select object. And what we want to do is we want to say T, or you can click on that little gray box right there, and you get this hatch dialog box. Now you can set the hatch pattern, and it says select 32, and don't do anything yet. Now it wants us to select 37 and apply the hatch pattern properties, 45 degrees. Okay, so you can see here that the hatch pattern is up and down, but you can see here that the hatch pattern is sort of 45 degrees. So I'm going to want to rotate that hatch pattern 45 degrees and set the color to red. Okay, so color red. And then I'm going to say OK. Now I haven't picked my spot yet. You can see I had that selected before too. So now I've applied a hatch pattern to both of those sections. That's not really what I wanted to do. So I'm going to say hatch, hatch, pick in there, and then I'm going to pick in there again. Now see how that's all one hatch pattern? That's because I did it all in the same command. So let's erase that again. Delete, hatch, apply it in there, not in there, and hit enter. Now that has all these settings for exercise 10-2, but what it doesn't have is, I messed that up. So I'm going to put that hatch pattern back in there. Now I did it in two separate commands, so now you can see that they are two separate pieces of hatch. Now if I select it, all those hatch settings that I had are right there. So you can see that at 45 I can change that to 0. This ANSI 37, I can change that back to ANSI 31. And the red color, I can change that back to bilayer. And then that completes exercise 10-2. Okay, 10-3. 10-3 on page 394 wants us to add a selection, add a boundary, add a hatch in this area here. That's this area here. And the reason for this is they want us to specify this 0.25 gap tolerance because there's a gap right here. Now the ideal situation is that anything that you're going to hatch is a completely closed area. This is not allowed. So if you run into earlier versions of AutoCAD, this is going to be a problem. You're going to need to close this little section right here. But in newer versions of AutoCAD, what this lets me do. So I'm going to say hatch, and I'm going to go and say settings. Okay, so they want us to use ENC 131 or ENC 31, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on my bilayer and change this back to 0. Now, if I come up here to my boundaries and I select this, I get this closed boundaries cannot be determined. That's because you cannot have this open area. It is not allowed. So I'll go back to my settings, and they want us to set the gap tolerance here at 0.25. So gap tolerance 0.25. Now when I go to select my boundary, I get another error message. But rather than say no, I can't do this, I get a choice. Do you want to continue to hatch this area, or do you not want to do this? I just want to continue to hatch the area. And you can see it kind of draws some imaginary lines in there to help finish off that hatch area, or that area that needs to be hatched, even though there's an open end down there. So then when I'm done, you can see it'll hatch that small area. You can see it kind of extends past, and that completes exercise 10-3. Okay, 10.4 or 10-4 on page 395. This wants to show you that we can do a solid hatch pattern. One of the last things you would want to do is select a hatch pattern and come over here and tell it that it's got a scale of 0.125 and try to make that look as solid as possible. It takes up a lot of computer resources, and if you're running on an older computer, that could cause you some problems if you have a lot of that going on. So what we're going to do, we're going to say hatch, and we're going to pick this area here. And you can see I had a word in there, and now it went away. So I'm going to go to the settings, and in the settings I have these things where I want to pick. So you can see I already picked it. We were on ENC 31 or 32 or 37, and you have these other hatch patterns you can use. And like I said, there is a ton of different hatch patterns. So under the other predefined, we have salad. That is the only method that you want to use for entering in a salad hatch pattern, unless it's one of these other predefined ones like clay. That's the only thing you want to do. So I'm going to say OK. And what they want us to do here in 10-4 is look at the island detection. So right now my island detection is set to ignore, meaning the text that I have here, it's going to hatch right over it. I'm not going to be able to see it. So I can change it to outer or normal. So if I say normal and say OK, you can see that it puts the text or the hatch around the text. And if I do the outer, you can see that kind of looks the same. So the book asks us to do normal, not ignore, and that looks like everything that we're supposed to do for exercise 10-4. So now, if you want to submit these first 4 in one lab, that's fine, or I'll take them all in individual files. You want to save those as, go here to save as, and that's not where I want to save them. I want to save them in my documents. I'll call that, this is lab 5.1 exercise. Oh, that's not right. Part 1, exercise 10-1 through 10-4. So to 10-4. And then that completes those. Put your initials on the end and send them to me.